Над Берлином взвелось знамя победы. Его водрузили советские люди, воины-победители. День перед строем зачитывался первомайский приказ Верховного Главнокомандующего. И здесь, в центре вражеской столицы, звучали сталинские слова. Дни гитлеровской Германии сочтены. Смертельно раненый фашистский зверь находится при последнем издыхании. Задача теперь сводится к одному – доконать фашистского зверя.
A little while ago I posted a YouTube short where I explained that when I was in high school our Lord Kitchener cosplaying history teacher skipped the part of the Second World War that involved the Red Army coming to our aid. Since leaving and going on to research and write about both wars for myself, I discovered so much that I had missed and I wondered why that was. The usual argument I've been faced with is, well, they were on the side of the Nazis, but to be honest that wasn't exactly untrue of Britain either. Even President Hoover met up with Hitler and believed he was less of a threat than Roosevelt. Americans who didn't fight and have no connection to it in any way were the only ones in my comments objecting, even though what I said was historically accurate. They are also the ones who have no sensitivity to the years of fighting and dying that occurred for years before they got off their arses and joined in, but love to throw tantrums while reciting that boring worn out phrase, "You'd be speaking German if it wasn't for us." It's fairly typical of them to take credit for something they weren't even born for while completely disregarding the suffering that their country had ignored until it suited them. Regardless, no one is denying that they helped, no one is denying that they sacrificed a lot, that they were significant in Allied victory. But no army is free from committing atrocities. How can anyone be conditioned as a soldier and not do terrible things? After Berlin had fallen, the women were treated terribly by American soldiers and British soldiers, but we are only told of the behaviours of the Red Army. Nobody cares for the staggering 27 million people lost across the Soviet Union because of the way we are taught to view that part of the world. 27 million people. That's a loss that one cannot comprehend, and it certainly cannot, should not be justified. It's not my opinion that without the USSR we'd have been in big trouble. It's a fact. Does that mean they're innocent of terrible things? Absolutely not. But if we hold them to a fair standard, the standards we hold the Allies, the West to, then we'd give them equal gratitude. We'd hold space for them in our thoughts during the 2-minute silence. I'm not going into this video in ignorance, for I know more than my fair share of awfulness at the hands of Red Army soldiers, the NKVD and anyone under Stalin's command, but I know what we all did under the mental strain of war and tragedy, uncertainty. It was all terrible, it was all painful, but what would we have done without them? Ivan Stepanovich Martinushkin had turned 21 just a few weeks before becoming one of the first people to walk through the gates of Auschwitz and begin its liberation. Ivan, Senior Lieutenant and Company Commander of the 1087th Rifle Regiment of the 322nd Division, 60th Army, over the First Ukrainian Front, emerged from a Polish village in January 1945 after a battle, and came upon a big field that had buildings behind tall, barbed-wired fences, cold and miserable in the snow. His regiment approached and saw a group of emaciated, exhausted, beaten people standing by some barracks. "We didn't understand their language at all," he said. "When we looked in their eyes, we saw that they understood one thing: the hell is over." While a few thousand had been left behind in the camp, tens of thousands had been taken away on the infamous death walk. One more thing that stays in my memory is the smell, this burnt odour. Corpses were still burning. We saw the face of war and we wanted to finish it as fast as we could. They'd gone through hell, constantly at death's door. Ivan had initially believed that they were liberating a prisoner of war camp like any other, and it wasn't until the war was over and all the details were exposed that he truly understood the gravity of what he had seen. We assumed that the ovens were crematoriums, that people had died and instead of being buried they were cremated. No one could have believed that these ovens had been built to kill people, that they were part of a systematic extermination plan. From their gaze we could feel their gratitude to us. Ivan Stepanovich is 102 years old and is the last of the liberators of Auschwitz. He himself was had to defend the participation of the Red Army in assisting the Holocaust survivors. When Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki published an article criticising the Red Army, Claiming they could have saved the prisoners 6 months earlier had they not delayed their advance, Ivan expressed his outrage with a powerful response. I personally participated in the liberation of Krakow and Auschwitz. Drops of my blood are on the soil that was later given to Poland. I was wounded in Silesia. If he had studied the Great Patriotic War, he would have seen that in June we were still liberating Ternopil, after heavy fighting. While of course everybody wishes it could have been ended with everybody rescued sooner, it absolutely was thanks to the Red Army soldiers that it was uncovered. Endless respect to Ivan Stepanovich Martynushkin and the liberators. Мы помним тебя.
А кто Берлин-то взял штурмом? Американцы, что ли? Англичане или французы? Красная армия. Подзабыли?
On April 16, 1945, Soviet forces attacked Berlin from the east and the south. A third unit, positioned north of Berlin, overpowered German forces. The Red Army had the city surrounded. 4 days later, on Hitler's birthday, Marshal Georgy Zhukov led the first Belarusian front from the east and the north into Berlin city centre where heavy shelling began. At the same time, Marshal Ivan Konev led the first Ukrainian front towards the southern suburbs of Berlin. Within a few weeks, the Red Army had taken control of the entire city. Only 2 weeks after the Soviets started their attack on Berlin, the cowardly Adolf had blown his brains out in his bunker.
Первого Белорусского фронта под командованием маршала Советского Союза Жукова при содействии войск Первого Украинского фронта под командованием маршала Советского Союза Конева после упорных уличных боев завершили разгром берлинской группы немецких войск и сегодня, 2 мая, полностью овладели столицей Германии, городом Берлином.
On June 24, 1945, Marshal Zhukov took to the podium at the Moscow Victory Day parade and delivered his famous 8.5-minute speech. Here's a clip for you.
Товарищи красноармейцы и краснофлотцы, сержанты и старшины, офицеры армии и флота, генералы и адмиралы, товарищи рабочие и работницы, колхозники и колхозницы, работники науки, техники и искусства, служащие советских учреждений и предприятий. Боевые друзья, от имени и по поручению советского правительства и Всесоюзной коммунистической партии большевиков приветствую и поздравляю вас с великой победой над германским империализмом.
We had to give to our core a message which, at least in my divisions, never had been given during all the war. We are no further able to attack. This is the end. And that was the 5th. And the morning of the 6th began the counterattack of the Russians. All over the front, not only against us. With new troops, a main part Siberian troops, and to give you another examples, what the Russians can do, part of these divisions came from Siberia by foot, marching. They left their spots at the beginning of August. They arrived on the 5th of December and attacked on the 6th of December. August, September, October, November, 4 months. one day in between and attack and win.
The Red Army accounted for 75 to 80% of the casualties suffered by the Wehrmacht and Waffen-SS on the Eastern Front. At least 34 million soldiers served in the Red Army, and in 1945 alone there was 11.3 million soldiers, making it the strongest army in the world. Inside the Bundestag, a place I dream of visiting for this reason in particular, they have preserved the remains of the wall defeated by Soviet soldiers as they took control of the city in 1945. It was actually during the Battle of Moscow that Deutschland suffered its first military defeat. Moscow was one of the primary military and political objectives for Axis forces in their invasion of the Soviet Union. The battle took place between October 1941 and January 1942. Operation Barbarossa was the name of Hitler's plan to capture Moscow within 4 months. Hitler, angry that they'd failed to break through to Moscow, tried to take control of the Wehrmacht himself. The Red Army's counter-offensive drove the Wehrmacht back 250 kilometers with their tails between their legs. In some areas this caused the retreat to turn into a panicked flight, which ended with Hitler dismissing a number of high-ranking military leaders. The Red Army completely liberated the Tula, Ryazan and Moscow regions, burying the German blitzkrieg at last. The Soviet Union has entered the war against us, and to continue the war would endanger the very foundation of the empire's existence. This was the speech Japan's Emperor Hirohito gave to his military when announcing the decision to surrender to the Allies. This was different than the reason he gave to the public, where in an attempt to make himself look like he had a heart, that he wasn't a coward, who cared about his people, named the cruel new bomb as the final straw. I'm ending this video with this fact, not without sympathy to the victims of the barbaric bomb at Hiroshima, which I could in no way do justice to the tragedy of at all, but to summarise the point of this video, to show the sheer power and influence of the USSR, to show that without them, God only knows where we would be.